The first thing I must point out is that this is not for you too long didn't read idiots out there. This is, however, a true story about the strangest and probably most demented Oblivion mod I've ever come across. What makes that true is the fact that it's more than just a mod. It's something else. To this day I'm baffled as to what it really was, or how the hell most of it was even possible. It all started about a year ago. After 2 years of playing the shit out of the main quest, guilds, Shivering Isles, and Knights of the Nine, I finally started filling up on a bunch of mods that even looked slightly appealing to me. Anyways, one day I was browsing through Planet Elder Scrolls, and one mod in particular caught my attention, as it had no screenshots, and the description simply read, "High level and skilled only, please." The file itself was a single ESP, only a byte large. I was clueless as to what it could be, which either fortunately or unfortunately brought me to give it a whirl. I downloaded it and opened up Windows Explorer, only to find to my surprise that it also come with a TXT file. The TXT was named Help, while the ESP was named Him. Please don't get confused though. It's not an intentional message saying help him. The names will be explained. I opened up the TXT file. The only thing in it was a short yet strange message. Killed him after he killed her. Lost game disk. Someone else do it or curse. I can't but laugh at reading the lack of meaning and grammar in the note. I should have known it was probably just some 10-year-old noob modder trying to make a pathetic quest. But I decided to proceed with placing it into my data, as it may have been a foreign uploader, and maybe it would be some interesting mystery plot. I checked the ESP and started up the game. Upon loading my character, a level 71 Imperial Knight named Joe for the hell of it, I immediately spawned in a pitch-black cave with no music or typical ambiance. Just dead silence. I luckily had a few torches on me, and light one to find that it was actually a cramped, straight tunnel with no door behind me. I had no choice but to advance forward. After about 10 seconds of running, I entered a large chamber with a single small wooden door at the opposite side. There was blood everywhere, however, and not like the typical Oblivion decals as you see in the arena. It looked so real. It had to be one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen in a game. I was even able to see teeth scattered in some places, along with a few fingers and bones. All of them looked so much more realistic than Oblivion itself. It gave me the shivers, and I hesitated to open the door, but I had no other option. I activated the door. I was now standing in what looked like a typical fort interior, except for the same blood and gore scattered everywhere. I only took about 5 steps when I suddenly heard a distant voice say, "Welcome, player." Now I was annoyed. I had always been a hardcore medieval role player, and breaking the fourth wall like that was enough to make me quit. However, the escape button wasn't working at all. I decided I would attempt to bail out via COC cheating, but the console didn't work either. I couldn't quit, and I couldn't cheat. I progressed forward without encountering any enemies, traps, or containers. Just a straight, featureless, and very dark tunnel with no music playing. But I heard very faint screams, sort of like tortured souls from hell. I couldn't tell, but I ignored it and just kept looking for something to do in this already abnormal mod. I soon heard the voice again, this time considerably closer and louder. Fucking finally, I'm free! The screaming souls grew louder, and I started to hear the distant running of someone else coming from the opposite side of the dark alley, of the dark hallway. Soon, the person appeared, a horrifying-looking man who was only in his underwear. He had 3 rotting gunshot wounds on his torso, and his head had also obviously been cracked open and was decaying as well. The most intimidating thing about him was that he looked just as real as anyone in real life, and he was gripping a machete and seemed to be full of intense rage. He charged at me, screaming, and I held up my steel shield. To my surprise, though, he instead bent down and started hacking away at my exposed legs. My health started to diminish very quickly as the man was performing many unorthodox maneuvers to counter the game's combat. I managed to heal on a couple health potions I had, and finally land a hit on him. He screamed in agony in a demonic-sounding voice as his model got a giant slice across his chest from where I struck, and then seemed to disintegrate that section of his body. I decided that running and swinging my sword constantly was the best option to avoid his unusual offense, and according to the meter on my crosshair, finally chipped away half of his health. By now his entire body was burnt up, with the skull showing with glowing red eyes. My armor was starting to break, and my health only had a small fraction remaining. The man was constantly hacking while screaming with insanity. I was lucky to actually deflect any of his attacks with my shield. I finally decided to quit my current strategy, which I knew would get me killed, and did a lunge attack, which at master level was a stab, and completely impaled the man. Despite having my volume at a reasonable level, his scream was loud enough to hurt my ears as his body soon became engulfed in flame and burst before he hit the ground. The level was filled with silence yet again, but then I saw that there was now an opening where the man had come out of. I walked inside. The room I entered was very dimly lit, with only a small wooden chair at the center and a straitjacket sitting at the corner. Resting in front of the chair, however, were somewhat old, real newspapers with the man in them. Apparently, he was insane and was held in an asylum for quite some time until deemed stable and released. Then I found a photograph of a woman. This made me think back to the help note, and I quickly understood everything. The insane man went to the uploader's house and brutally murdered his wife. The husband quickly responded by shooting him 3 times, which resulted in the attacker busting his head on something behind him when he fell. The husband either contained the insane man's soul in the ESP somehow, or the man haunted it. Either way, since the husband's Oblivion game was lost, he had to find someone who could finish the job and destroy his evil soul once and for all, or else allow him to kill even more in spirit form. I have no idea whether this is true or some really fucked up story, but whatever it is, I still have nightmares about that man screaming in rage.